Welcome to Conversate, our podcast where we engage in conversation. On this week's episode, I, Aaron Gerke, and Kevin Bender are back together after a few weeks being apart, and we have a conversation as we hop back into the story about Solomon and wisdom. So as we open up this conversation, we pray that God's word will come to you and that you, like Solomon, would also ask for God to help make you wise. We really hope you enjoy this conversation. Hey, cheers, Kevin.
Morning, Aaron.
Happy New Year, buddy.
Dude, 2022.
It's been a while, like a whole, I don't know, a year or so.
I haven't talked to you in here since last year.
Oh, man. That joke never gets old. We haven't, though. You and I have not conversated in a while.
Yeah, because you talked with Greg.
Yeah, before Christmas.
Year. Yep.
Yeah, and then you talked with Dawn.
Yeah, that's right. A little Christmas break. And then, I talked to Dawn last week, so.
Yeah.
Well, nice to have you back, buddy.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
Yeah.
We had a little vacay to Minnesota, and so today I'm wearing the shirt that you and I both have.
That's right.
And I knew it was safe to wear it today because you wore it yesterday.
That's
so, you know, as long as we can keep alternating what days we wear it. That was funny when we that was on Sunday right after Christmas, because I got this shirt for Christmas, and I didn't even know that you had it. I mean, not that I pay attention to what your shirts look like.
Well, it's fairly new. I mean, Molly got it for me maybe like a month earlier. You know, like not crazy.
Right. And then we walked into church and
bingo.
We're in the same stuff. I guess that means we've been working together long enough that we start dressing alike.
Yeah. Is that what happens?
Yeah.
Okay.
Doesn't it?
I don't know.
You start dressing like your wife, and
people they start looking like their dogs.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose you do. You know, just in general, you absorb like the people who you are around. You do we take on traits and characteristics and things of.
I think that's true.
That which we surround ourselves with.
I think that's true.
That sounds like true. I feel like you could condense that into a pithy saying that would be useful for walking through life.
Like what?
Bad company corrupts good character. Maybe?
Oh, or good company corrupts bad character.
Redeems bad character.
Oh, there we go. All right.
Maybe.
Yeah.
That's bad theology.
Yeah, probably. Hey, so we're hopping back into the story. We had a little bit of a break from the story, but at St. Peter and Paul, we're continuing this journey through the Bible, and there's a bit of good. I don't know. I've just enjoyed the steady walk through the scriptures, and every time we do this, it's just kind of this reminder of the consistency of the narrative of God's story throughout the Bible. And so this last week, you were preaching about Solomon, David's son with Bathsheba, the third king of Israel, the wise guy.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So you spent quite a bit of time talking about wisdom, right? Mm-hmm. Now, how did you talk? Because I've taught on this before too, and kind of the difference between knowledge and wisdom.
Okay.
What did you say?
Yeah,
about that?
kind of at the beginning of the sermon, like one of the definitions I'd heard of wisdom was applied knowledge.
Okay.
So like knowledge being, you can learn and collect a whole lot of things up here, but wisdom is taking that. Sorry if you're listening and not seeing this. Knowledge is stuff stored in your head that you learn, but wisdom is actually taking that stuff that's in your head and now applying it to your life, so as to, I guess, make your life run a little smoother.
Yeah, because sometimes I talk about it too, like that with the head, that knowledge is in the head, but then wisdom is kind of head and heart and hands, right? I mean, it's the same deal, the applied stuff, but because there are a lot of people, I mean, even the devil knows about God,
right?
A lot of people know things about the Bible, but don't live their lives according to it.
Right.
So there's something different between knowledge and wisdom. But I think that there's also no wisdom without knowledge either.
Yeah.
Right. So these things go hand in hand.
Right.
And I actually noticed that in Proverbs, because I think in your sermon you talked about Proverbs chapter 9, where Solomon says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. But in chapter 1, in Proverbs chapter 1, he actually says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge.
Oh, yeah.
So, so Solomon says both things, and it's true, I think. So,
Yeah.
That having that posture in God's presence allows us, one, to know about Him, but to apply it.
And that's something that, I was noticing this kind of about wisdom in general from lots of sources, which is this idea about humility. Like you just said, Solomon is, he's kind of posturing this humbleness before God, right? And so other philosophers, like Socrates wasn't a Christian, right?
No.
Okay, so yeah, I don't know much about Socrates, but I know he said this. He said that like true wisdom is to know that you know nothing. That's like his famous quote, right? Okay. And in Proverbs, at the beginning, Solomon, he kind of starts out like with this like narrative about a son listening to his father, right? Which is kind of, there's a humbleness to that, right? Like you don't receive, if you're not humble, you don't receive instruction. You just say, don't tell me what to do.
Right.
I know better than you, Dad.
Right.
You don't know what it's like to be me, Dad.
Right.
I never said any of those things.
Yeah, right.
So there is, even like secularly, people realize there's humility is like associated with wisdom. If you walk in thinking you know it all, you'll tend to fall. This is why like pride cometh before the fall, right? Yeah. There's that proverb. Yeah. So it's interesting that that there's this humility associated, and Solomon really shows it because he actually calls himself a child. We looked at his dream, right? So that was the text from Sunday. Solomon has this dream. He's in Gibeon sacrificing. There's no temple yet because he hasn't built it.
Yeah.
So he's in Gibeon sacrificing to God. He has this dream, and in the dream, Solomon's like, "Yeah, I'm kind of like a kid. God.
Right.
I'm a child. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to come in or how to go out.
Right.
It's a very humble statement.
Didn't you say he was about 20 at that time?
Yeah, that's what. Basically by looking at other people's lives around him, they deduced his age to be either 19 or 20 when he took the throne.
Yeah, I was having a conversation about that. At our Bible class at church, and the conversation it's pretty remarkable that Solomon, as a 20-year-old, has that kind of humility and that kind of prayer and that kind of posture before God, because most 20-year-olds, or at least as we imagine them now, or
remember ourselves as them,
think that we know it all, and that the people who are the wise ones who have been around the block, that they're dumb, that they don't know anything, right?
And even in the biblical story, interestingly, this next king, so Solomon's kid, Rehoboam,
right,
at the very start of his kingship, he's going to get counsel from an old crew and then from a young crew, and he goes with the young guys, and it totally blows up in his face. So it is remarkable that Solomon at this young age is posturing, modeling humility.
Right. Because somebody also said, a lot of times in life, I think wisdom generally, if we're humble, does come with age, because we're forced into humility, just based on life experiences where things are out of control, out of your own control, and it's just like, I've got nothing, like I have no idea what I'm doing. God, without you, I'm nothing. But a lot of times that, I think it's hard to truly be in that place of humility until it's sometimes been like forced upon you, So I don't know. I think that's why just naturally we talk about. I think what I'm trying to say is that the people that we think of in this world that we would define as wise, or if I said who's somebody in your life that's wise, likely you're thinking of somebody probably older. Right? Yep. Mature, that's lived some life, that just kind of has this understanding, this patience, this gentleness, this humility, that goes a long ways.
Yeah.
So it's something for Solomon to be at a place at such a young age where he's posturing himself before God, saying, I don't know anything, So.
Yeah, I suppose older folks have had more time in their life to have applied their knowledge, right? For better or worse, right?
Yeah.
Like they've lived it out. They had ideas that they thought, this is how the world works. And then they learned, this isn't how the world works. And as a young person, Yeah, just haven't had that time yet.
Right.
I find it interesting too that, and we see this with God so often, like it tends to be those like harder times or like those life breakdown times. Like God, he kind of shows up a lot in those moments.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, I know it from my own life, for sure. I actually think that's why I have gray hairs on my beard and in my hair. You don't have any yet because you're still a young man, Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
But
Gotta earn
I
it.
do like to say that those are my source of wisdom. So, you know, that's a positive spin on it. So,
Yeah.
but no, I mean, I mean, we talk about things like that, like those, like gray hairs are earned. You know,
Yeah.
like it comes through some of those stressful, hard learning moments, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is what we need to learn about our God, is that he is always the same for us. He is always God, and we are always his children. And I think that's, at least, I don't know if you didn't say those words in your sermon, but that was where you were trying to get us to, like that Jesus is the king above all kings. He is the Lord above all lords. He is our highest priority above all our priorities, or he needs to be. And then all the rest of that stuff falls into place.
Yep.
And God he is always God, and we are always his. It's just sometimes we just like to kick him out, you know? We like to say, no,
To usurp the throne.
Yeah.
To redefine good and evil, like Adam and Eve in the garden.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. Like all these stories in the Bible, to me, they ring so true because we experience them ourselves. And sometimes it's like, to me, it's really wild how unconsciously it happens, like unthinkingly, you know? It's not like I set out and start my day by saying, God, today, I'm not going to trust you because I'm going to trust myself. I think I'm more credible than you are, God. You know, it's not like I actively think that. I don't think anyone, well, maybe there's some people who are just like vehemently against God, you know, who would say something like that. But as a Christian person or someone who's trying to follow God, it's not like you wake up and you're like, yeah, today I'm going to go against everything you've said, you know. But then I find myself doing things where it's like, wait a minute, God has said something about this. And it's different than the way I'm thinking about it. Why am I doing this?
Right.
You know, or why did I think that this thing, you know, was actually gonna play out better than it is, or pay out? You know, there's so many things where it's like we chase after them, I guess. And this is so in the wisdom literature, right? We have Proverbs, and we kind of just stayed in Proverbs this week. But then there's also Ecclesiastes and Job. I think those are the three.
Song of Solomon.
Is that considered wisdom literature?
I believe so.
I know it's part of the Ketuvim.
Yeah.
But like Ecclesiastes, like Proverbs is like, hey, listen here if you want some just like good advice for your life every day.
Yeah.
But then Ecclesiastes gets a little darker into kind of like, what is it? What are we chasing all these things for? And kind of the foolishness and running around and chasing after all these things that kind of, I don't know, they're shiny and they look nice, and it's like we think if we have them, then our life will somehow just be like perfect forever.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like, and you can do that with lots of stuff. I mean, when I was talking about, I don't think I said this in first service, but in second service, I made some comment about, I made the comment in both services about when you try and force romance, you're not going to find your girlfriend, right? And then in the second service, I said something like, I wish I knew that in high school. I made some joke about that. But it's kind of true. Like in high school, I was all these friends of mine, you know, we're dating and relationships, and I just felt like a loser.
Okay.
You know? And I thought that if I had a girlfriend, my life would just be perfect. Be complete, be no problems. Learned a little, more about that. But I don't. Why? Why do we imagine that this, that, or the other thing is actually gonna usher in everlasting peace and hope and love and good things? You know, I don't know. But
Years back, I did a sermon series on Ecclesiastes, and I filmed a little video of it because he talks about it's like vanity. It's like chasing after the wind.
Yeah.
So my daughter Hazel was probably like, I don't know how old she was. I'm gonna say like 3, and I'm just going by the memory in my head of her in this video. But I videoed her chasing after bubbles. So my kids, you know, you blow bubbles with a bubble wand, and they chase after them. Kids love that, you know.
Oh yeah.
But it's kind of funny, and it's silly because it's like, I got to get this biggest bubble. Like, that's the kids always are like, I get the biggest one, you know, and then it's gone. You know, it's just a chasing after the wind, you know, essentially, and then it's fleeting.
As soon as you touch it, it pops.
Yeah, and so that's this image that I have of like all this pursuit of vain things in this world. But yeah, I mean, why is that? And I think it's simple. I mean, it's a lack of contentment, letting God be God and being His creature. You know, because a lack of contentment, being content with what God has given to you, leads you to pursue all the things that you think are right in your own eyes, right? Instead of just, you know, accepting what God gives to you. And that's not to say like that we shouldn't pursue things or work on things. Like,
right.
Sometimes Christians get it a little backwards, like thinking that we just have to be completely passive. You know, and it's just like that's what faith, like people would think that's what faithfulness is. Like, I will never put my skills to work or to use. I'll just I'll wait for God to give me the direction, you know, and open up the heavens and shine His light down from the clouds, you know.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's something to letting God be God, being His person, acknowledging that is the reality, and then saying, all right, Lord, put me to work, you know. Give me your wisdom as I make decisions, you know. Let me live like you and speak your word in this world. But keeping that prioritization correct is huge. I was having a conversation with somebody after you preached from the church, and they were just saying that it was a super necessary message for this person because he was just saying, I know what my highest thing is, and it's not God. You know, and it's just like I said, my prayer will be for you that there can be a reorientation of that, you know. So we talked about it briefly, but
yeah, I really like your language of being discontent, because that's super relatable. And it sounds like, you know, so often what we do when we're discontented is maybe we fixate on whatever the thing we feel like is lacking in our life. We're like, I'm discontent because I don't have that.
Yeah.
And then we start to think, if I had that, I wouldn't be discontent.
Yeah.
That's what I want. Give it to me. You know, or let me go. Why can't I have it? You know.
Right.
And maybe like talking about God being God and us being His children. Maybe the bigger discontentment is one that's actually with God, right? If we're recipients, and we have to be careful with this, because again, like you're saying, we still apply our skills and our, you know, our abilities to things. We're not completely passive in this, but maybe it's possible that we're kind of mad at God, you know, because our life looks a certain way, and like in any other relationship, when you're kind of like frustrated person, you know, what's not helpful is to never like deal with it and just kind of let it simmer right underneath the surface. Like it starts affecting how you act around that person, you know, because there's like this issue that you just haven't sorted out with them. But if you sort it out, if you just bring it up and talk about it, half the time, maybe more, I find out like the person's like, oh, I didn't even realize we had like this, there was a problem, man.
Right.
Like, hey, no big deal, you know, and they kind of clear it up, and it's like, oh, geez, I feel way better now.
Yeah.
You know, I wonder if that doesn't happen sometimes. Like, I know I have been there with God, where I've just been, I just really discontent in my life. And for me, at least, it took, I mean, kind of like in a Job-like way, throwing it at God. And then it was just like, it was just like a way to help clear, I guess, the air between us, and like, you kind of come through it at the end, not really realizing. You go into it kind of like, I mean, we all feel like we're right, you know, or like we have a right to something. Yeah. And at the end of it, like if you read Job, you know you're never going to win that conversation. Yeah. But you do learn, and I think you grow in your, I don't know, I don't want to be prescriptive about it and say this is what you have to go and do. But I just know in my life, when I have been at some of the most discontent moments of my life, it has been really helpful for me to take that discontentment and just broach it with God, because it's like He's the one who doles out all things.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus is like, hey, the sparrows and the birds, and like He'll take care of you. And so if you feel like you're not being taken care of, well, talk to Him about it. Don't just. I guess what I'm afraid of is I don't want people to let that simmer, like it does in lots of relationships, like human relationships, and become a block to your relationship with God. Because I feel like it always goes so much better when you just talk about whatever it is that's making you discontent. But I hadn't really thought about, why we chase after these things from a discontented perspective. But that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, excuse me. It goes back to the original sin of Adam and Eve in the garden too. Mm-hmm. I mean, their sin is essentially discontentment.
Yeah. Like they had what God had given them.
Yeah, and then they're tempted with something else, something better, supposedly.
Right. Something He hadn't given them anyway. Like there was a trust factor in there. Like, well, I don't know, this other thing.
Yeah. I mean, so it's pretty simple if you just kind of boil it down, what the problem is. Yeah, Solomon, man. Let's just kind of come back full circle to him, though, because he is a phenomenal leader, with his wisdom, and he was also a builder. That's how I've heard it said about Solomon. I mean, he built a remarkable palace. He built a temple. He built relationships and allies. He built all this. He built tons of stuff. And he was world renowned for it. So much so, like you even mentioned, the Queen of Sheba from way down south came up to see his wisdom and then actually praised this God, this Yahweh, this God of Israel herself, which is just fascinating. So I don't know. I mean, the whole temple idea. I mean, we didn't talk about that much in the sermon, and I don't know that we need to talk about it a ton. But was there anything in your reading or research that you were thinking about with the temple in general, or not really?
No, not really.
Really go there.
Not really. I didn't think about going there, but I mean, there's always so much, like that's the one hard thing I think, like as we chart these weeks, it's like we're covering a lot of ground, but it's a huge moment. I mean, I almost talked about it more with David, who didn't build the temple, back when he was wanting to build God the temple, but Solomon does it, and when he does, God like rushes in upon it, right? Yeah. Big celebration. It's kind of cool. I think doesn't Solomon like pray and ask God, he's kind of like asking God to have His presence be known.
Yeah. And I was. The temple is one example of what God does consistently throughout the scriptures, which is He is present, and He
locates
fills,
Himself.
Yeah, He fills. Yeah. He comes, and so like in the days of creation, there's days of forming and there's days of filling, and God does the same thing in the tabernacle. They build the tabernacle, and then He fills it. Now they build the temple, and He fills it. He'll do it most fully with Jesus, right? When He comes and takes on our presence. And ultimately, in all of eternity, we will be in His presence, totally filled up by Him. So, yeah, we don't need to dwell on it maybe too much, but the temple was built with Solomon in 590. I've read some different dates, 597, something like that.
It must be before that, right? Because, Solomon was like close to 1000 BC, because it's getting destroyed.
Oh, not right? 597, I've got 957, I think.
There we go. Yeah. Same numbers, different
order.
Sorry. 957 or 975 maybe.
Golly.
One of the two.
Well, no. You look it up. Yeah. I had it yesterday, now I forgot.
I'll have to look it up. But yeah. And that's, I'm trying to think, prior to this, Jerusalem isn't necessarily any sort of big place for God's people, right? I mean, David kind of sets up there.
David did, yeah.
Yeah, so it's just Solomon's dad. So like Jerusalem and all that surrounds Jerusalem, this is kind of pretty new and fresh at this time.
Yeah.
But becomes, obviously, and even still today. This is the weird thing. I don't know. To me, this blows me away. And maybe to the average listener, it won't. But just, I don't know, listener, think to yourself, do you ever marvel at, wow, people are still like fighting over this land over in Jerusalem? Like sometimes when I read the Bible, it's like my mind gets transported to some other. Not that I don't think it's real. Of course, I believe it's real.
Yeah.
But I forget that, like, dude, it took place down here.
Yeah, right.
It's this world, you
yeah.
know? Like, oh yeah, that's right. Whoa, crazy.
Yeah.
So anyways, there's a temple built in Jerusalem, and
Yep, and this is the one that will be there until it's destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar. But we'll get there.
yeah,
Get there eventually.
to come in the story.
Yeah.
Well, looking forward to it, man. Looking forward
Yeah.
to tracking ahead, and keep cruising with God's people. And
Yeah. All right. Well, it's good chatting with you as always, and time for you to get a few gray hairs on your head. Huh?
yeah, well, not too soon.
All right. Take care.